I'm out here using my sawmill, my Norwood LM29 sawmill, to mill out some board and batten for my greenhouse. And I'm going along just fine. I think I got 3 logs done with the blade that was on it. It started getting a little hard to push. Felt like the blade was getting a little dull. So I figured I'd swap it out. Swap the blade out. Nice fresh cut on there. Easier to push. I get 2 pieces, 2 cuts in on this board, on this log that I'd already squared up. And the log I'd started, I'd already squared it up. No problems. Didn't have any nails in it. Switch out the blade. I mill 2 times, 2 cuts, and the blade starts to dive on me. And I'm looking at the wood. I'm looking for a nail. I'm looking for a rock. I'm looking for anything that would have dulled that blade to make it want to walk. I can't find anything. Scratching my head. I've got the water going. I can't understand it. And maybe the blade's just a bad blade. So I go along my merry way into my garage, and I get another blade out of the box. Cursing Norwood the whole time because they're Norwood blades. They're the saber tooth, I think is what they're called. And I'm just cursing the Norwood blade, blade's brand new and it's no good. $25 for that blade. Put a new blade on there. I get 1 cut, 1 pass. The second pass, it starts to dive. And the first pass was only there to clean up what the old blade had taken a chunk into. So I got the cleanup cut done. And the next cut, it's a foot in, and it starts taking a dive. And you can hear it. You can hear it because this little wheel has bearings. The metal wheel on a metal blade, and it makes like it's not a pretty sound. But you can tell when the blade gets away from it and that wheel stops spinning, you can hear a change in everything. You hear that change in the way the machine's operating. So I know when it's diving. You don't necessarily know when it's trying to cut up because it puts a little more pressure on that wheel. But you know when it's diving because that wheel stops spinning and you hear a difference. So I knew it. As soon as it started to happen again, I knew it. 2 cuts. I don't know what 2 blades in a row? That doesn't make sense at all. But I did notice one thing when I was swapping the blade out. I noticed that just the blade that cuts, the part of it that cuts, not as a loop, but the cutting part of that blade that's open and exposed, the top was starting to get caked with a fine sawdust or maybe a sap. And the bottom was perfectly clean, nothing on it. And I thought about it when it started happening to the second blade, and I looked at the blade. Wow, it's caking up on the top but not the bottom. And I'm running water through my machine. I've even got dish soap in it to clean up some of the pitch, some of the stuff that might be in there. It'll kind of keep the blade clean. I've found that running a little bit of dish soap keeps it a little bit cleaner than just running straight water. So I usually run just a couple squirts of dish soap in the big tub up there. But it wasn't helping. So I did a little experiment. I took a razor blade. I popped the covers off so I could spin it by hand. And I cleaned that layer of crust off the blade. Put the covers back on, fired it up, flipped that log over that was already squared up, flipped it over so I had a fresh piece to work with, and I left the water off. No water at all. Made a cut, it didn't walk a bit. Made a second cut, didn't walk a bit. Finished off that piece. I think there were 5 pieces of board and batten that I got out of the rest of that log. and it never walked at all. Not up, not down, nothing. Straight cuts. It also didn't have the buildup on the blade. Didn't get that buildup on it. So I'm guessing that buildup is just enough to, as it's riding underneath that board, it's pushing the blade down, and as it goes, it doesn't come back up. It never corrects itself because there's too much buildup on the top of that blade. I don't know how long you can run this without water on the blade. I've always run water on the blade when I'm cutting. I don't know, maybe it heats up more without the water, maybe the lifespan isn't as much. But if you're having this problem where the blade's constantly walking down, look at the top of your blade, see if it's caked up just a little bit. It doesn't have to be caked up. It's just a thin layer of fine, like a fine powder sawdust, maybe mixed with some sap. Now these are blue pine logs, so these are standing dead trees. These aren't fresh green pine. They're basically, I would say, half dry. When I try and get them, when the needles are completely brown, but the needles are still on the tree. Usually if you cut a blue pine down that doesn't have any needles on it, it's really punky in the middle. But as long as it's got needles still on it, it seems to be pretty solid. And that's the way these are. These 4 logs came off the same tree. This is the last one I have to mill out, but I figured I'd take a minute and make a video just to see if anybody else out there that runs a bandsaw mill, regardless of what type it is, if you've had this problem before and how you corrected it. Maybe you added something different to your water. Right now, I think I'm running, I think it's Dawn dish soap. It's a blue Dawn dish soap. Maybe there's a better dish soap or a better soap for keeping the blade clean. Let me know in the comments if you have it, if you're running a different type of soap through your machine. Now, I'm definitely happy with this Norwood sawmill. I wouldn't give it up for the world. It's a really good sawmill. It's got the measurement system on the side. It's easy to adjust. It's easy to read. It could use a better dogging system, but I think every machine out there has a downfall. Anyways, guys, thought I'd post a little quick video on this, show you my remedy. I don't necessarily recommend running it without water. I believe the water is there to cool and lubricate the blade, and your blade is probably going to last longer with the water. But in this case, I'm kind of stuck. I can't run the water on this particular set of logs. Now with the other blade, before I swapped it out, I did mill out part of this tree and I didn't have a problem. That blade didn't walk at all. It just got dull. So it was a little bit tough to push. Not much, but just a noticeable amount where you can kind of feel like you're pushing the blade too much. And that's when I know to switch my blades out. So after switching a blade, I don't know. I don't know what changed. It was the same log. The blade didn't walk on the log that I'd squared up, but that new blade caked up really quick. This blade caked up really quick. Who knows? Let me know in the comments, guys. Until next time, go make something.